One of the most iconic investors of all time, Warren Buffett, coined the quote, "The markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent." That quote perfectly personifies this monthly candle for Tesla, one of its largest ever drawdowns in one single month. The drawdowns from the all-time high can be quite common for 40+% with this particular company. Doesn't change the fear that you go through when you see the value go down so dramatically. It makes you question the fundamentals of what this company represents and the story that you have to tell yourself of what it's going to become in the future. Are cybercabs and most importantly Optimus going to be realized? Are they going to actually materially make their way into the balance sheet of this company so that your earnings per share increase? That beach ball being held underwater represents this company that will spring back, that will have so much growth and so much potential in the near future. But you've got to be able to hold on. You've got to be able to strap in for the ride that is going to be a very volatile ride. Now, there are only 41 days since the IPO of Tesla that actually represent true material exponential gains in this stock. And being able to hold those 41 days will give you the most amount of actual potential in growth. There are a few signals. The ex-Peng executive says that FSD in China is absolutely mind-blowing. You've got the macro events that are starting to show that this is a time to accumulate when the ISM is under 50. The expansion, this is an opportunity for you to get into risk assets before they start to really move. In addition, the Senate have just voted yes to increase the government's debt ceiling up to 40 trillion, which means that there's going to be more liquidity coming into the market. That liquidity always finds its way into risk assets. Dojo jobs are starting to be recruited with this system on wafer design, which is going to be purpose-built for FSD and Optimus, and this is going to start to make a true impact materially in the neural network that is used to train the Optimus robot. There are even more jobs being advertised for the Optimus robot to be able to actually start creating these units in high volume very soon. And then you've got the most accurate sentiment indicator, which is showing that 60+% of the market is currently bearish. And at those moments, you go back to Warren Buffett's quote, "The market can stay irrational longer than many people can stay solvent." At times of fear, it's usually the opportunity that you're always going to regret not taking. So I really want to go through my view of the Optimus robot. I want to go through my numbers of the Optimus robot. And if we were to just actually look at the most realistic amount of units, how would that impact the share price? The numbers that I've used for the inputs to calculate the earnings per share that Optimus will have on the Tesla stock have come from Tesla's Q4 guidance in January, and then also from Elon Musk's most recent quotes when he's been interviewed about this year being in the tens of thousands of Optimuses being created, and then in 2026, it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands. So if I take two scenarios where Optimus is able to be sold to corporations and other companies for 100,000 to work in factories, the cost basis is 9,000, and they're going to create 100,000 of these, then the numbers are already really good. The second scenario is where Optimus is being sold in the millions of units, but only for 20,000. And this is where it becomes more commercial and more accessible for everyone for everyday use. So we'll look at those two scenarios and we'll see how this could impact the earnings per share and be a material impact on the share price over the next 2 years. So let's look at my view of Optimus's impact on the earnings per share. Currently, the earnings per share based on the Q1 earnings call, Tesla's 66 cents per share, and it's adjusted with their digital asset allocation to 73 cents. Now, if you have $100,000 selling price scenario and they're $9,000 to make, this is going to create a total revenue scenario where you have 100,000 times 100,000, which gives you 10 billion. The total cost is 9,000, which means that it's going to cost 100,000 times 9,000, which is going to give you 900 million in terms of cost to make this amount of robots. The gross profit equals total revenue, take away the total cost. So that's going to be 10 billion, take away 900 million, which is going to give you 9.1 billion. And then the operating margin, which is going to be the 20% after expenses, that's calculated by taking the gross profit and taking the percentage of that, the 20%. So you're going to take 20% off 9.1 billion, and that's going to leave you with 1.82 billion in operating expenses. But then you've got to consider the 21% US corporation tax. So you'll then take the 1.82 billion and then take 21% off that, which will leave you with 382.2 million. So your net earnings are going to be your operating profit, which is 1.82 billion, take away the corporation tax, which is 382 million, which will leave you with 1.43 billion. This will impact the earnings per share as there are 3.19 billion outstanding shares. You take the net earnings, divide that by the shares outstanding. So you take that 1.438 billion, divide it by the outstanding shares, which is 3.19 billion, and that will give you 45 cents per share. So that additional 45 cents per share is already a near 80% increase, and that's already realistically planned for the rest of 2026. So that's already a material 80% increase in the stock price just based on these numbers. And these numbers are sandbagged. These numbers are low. I think that Tesla are going to go way higher in terms of the volume. But just based on these numbers, that is already quite a large increase that I'm happy with. So if we were to change this selling price to 20,000, which means that they're going to be more accessible for the everyday consumer, you take the earnings per share, you divide it by 3.19 billion, and it will leave you with 0.05 cents per share. However, if you're going to be selling the Optimus robot for 20,000, it means that the volumes are going to be in the millions. Because to be able to make them that cheaply, to be able to sell them that cheaply, you're going to have to be making a high volume amount of these units. So if you look at the numbers now, you take the current earnings per share of 66 cents, you add an additional $1 to each earnings per share after selling 1 million units for 20,000, which is very realistic in 2027. This is already an 151% just on this one business. So how could all of this be relevant? These numbers are quite complicated, but to keep them simple and to see the realistic impact that they could have on the Tesla business model, this is just one of the many companies that they are massively investing in and they are leading in. And you can just take your numbers. You can say 100,000 units selling for 30,000, and you can just calculate yourself how you get to the earnings per share increase. And as you start to model these numbers, you start to see how this materially impacts the potential growth of the company. And so the near-term, medium-term noise and the difficulty that comes from being a Tesla investor at the moment with these drawdowns that are truly gut-wrenching, the actual numbers and the data and the business hasn't changed. And the impact that these businesses will have, and this is just Optimus, we've still got fully self-driving, we've still got energy, we've still got Dojo and the supercomputer chips that they are very, very close to completing. And there are so many other businesses, the semis, the trucks, and the synergy with these companies and Elon's other companies, SpaceX and the Boring Company and Neuralink, and the ability to create satellites with a low latency using Starlink, it all starts to paint the picture of, if you have a longer term view of this company, it all starts to come together as the potential only real option for serious growth over the next few years. So again, I hope you got some important information from this video. I'm hoping that you managed to understand the numbers and you can change the numbers that I've used with your own, or you can drop a comment down below and ask me how I got to these numbers and what I used to calculate them, and I will be happy to help. But if you got any value from this video, please like, subscribe, drop a comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much.